Welcome back to our channel World of Coins, the place where we uncover hidden treasures in your coin collection. Have you ever wondered if that old coins could be worth thousands or even millions? Well, today's your lucky day. We're diving into some of the rarest and most valuable US coins that might be sitting right under your nose. Let's jump in and see if you've got a fortune waiting to be discovered. Top 1. You might be holding one right now. A simple, brownish-red coin that barely buys anything anymore. A penny. Just 1 cent. But what if I told you that one of these could actually be worth more than a luxury car, or even more than some houses? That's not a myth. It's real. And today, we're going deep into one of the most talked about coins in American history, the 1974 Lincoln 1-cent penny. It's small, copper-colored, and has one of the most iconic faces in U.S. history staring straight ahead, President Abraham Lincoln. The design has been around since 1909, created to honor Lincoln's 100th birthday. Since then, billions of these pennies have been minted. But not all are created equal. And in 1974, something strange happened. Back in the early 1970s, the cost of copper started rising sharply. That was a big deal, especially for the US Mint, because the 1-cent coin, made mostly of copper, was starting to cost more than its own face value to produce. Think about that for a second. Producing a coin for 1 cent was costing more than 1 cent. That's not good business. So, the Mint began experimenting with alternatives. The most famous experiment involved replacing the copper with aluminum. Yes, aluminum pennies. Over 1 million 1974 Lincoln pennies were struck in aluminum as part of this test run. They looked different. Felt lighter. And they were never meant to reach the public. Congress didn't approve the change, and most of those experimental aluminum coins were quickly melted down. But, somehow, a few slipped through the cracks. Rumors started to spread. Whispers of mysterious, lightweight 1974 pennies showing up in coin collections, flea markets, and even pocket change. Suddenly, collectors were on the hunt. Even the regular 1974 copper pennies became more interesting. That year, multiple versions of the coin were struck at different mints, and a handful of unusual strikes, errors, double dies, and even coins struck on the wrong metal, started to pop up. Some 1974 pennies were found to be struck on bronze planchets, others on transitional materials from earlier or later years. These weren't mistakes anyone could see easily. They required close inspection. But when they were found, their value shot through the roof. So how can you tell if you have one of these valuable coins? Start with the basics. The date should clearly read 1974. Then look for the mint mark. No mark means it was minted in Philadelphia. A D means Denver. An S means San Francisco. Now, take a close look at the color, weight, and shine. Does it look lighter than usual? Does it feel strange in your hand? Could it be aluminum? Or struck on a foreign planchet by mistake? If anything looks off, don't ignore it. Collectors love coins that are unusual, especially ones that were never meant to exist. If your coin is in pristine condition, hasn't been circulated much, or shows signs of a mint error, it could already be worth more than face value. And if it's one of the few surviving experimental pieces or has a unique strike, you could be looking at a rare treasure. Some of these 1974 Lincoln pennies have been professionally graded and authenticated, and when they hit the auction block, the results are nothing short of shocking. Because one specific version of the 1974 Lincoln penny, believed to be extremely rare and preserved in exceptional condition, once sold for the staggering amount of $145,000. That's not a typo. One single penny. Sold for $145,000. So, next time you're going through your loose change or digging through a coin jar, take a closer look. That old penny might be worth more than your car. Or your rent for the year. Or your student loan payments. These hidden gems are out there, and most people walk past them every single day. All it takes is a sharp eye, a little knowledge, and sometimes, a little luck. So check your change. Inspect your pennies. And remember, History often hides in the smallest, most unexpected places. Even in the palm of your hand. Top 2. A penny. Just a tiny coin. 1 cent. Most of us toss it aside, drop it in jars, or let it sit forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. But what if that small, overlooked coin could be your ticket to a small fortune? What if the right penny, the right year, the right little detail, could change everything? We're diving into a coin that might seem ordinary at first glance, the 1976 Lincoln 1-cent penny. It's small, common, and millions were made. But as history shows us, sometimes the most valuable treasures are hiding in plain sight. Let's go back to 1976. It was a big year in America. The country was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Fireworks, parades, flags on every doorstep. A wave of patriotism swept across the nation, and that wave even reached the U.S. Mint. In 1976, the United States Mint created special commemorative designs for the quarter, half dollar, and dollar coins to honor the bicentennial. But the humble penny? It kept its classic look. No special logo. No special edition. Just the same familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. But beneath that surface, something unusual was happening. While the penny didn't get a special design, certain 1976 Lincoln cents were anything but ordinary. Hidden among the billions of coins produced that year were a few rare varieties, coins with striking errors, rare materials, or incredibly sharp details. And these small mistakes, overlooked by most, have turned regular pennies into collector goldmines. Most 1976 pennies were minted in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. You can check which mint yours came from by looking under the date. If there's no letter, it's from Philadelphia. A small D means Denver. An S means San Francisco. But the real story is what lies deeper. Some 1976 Lincoln pennies were struck with subtle but valuable errors. We're talking about double dies, off-center strikes, or coins struck on planchets meant for foreign currencies. These are the mistakes that escape unnoticed, until someone takes a closer look. Some of these coins may weigh slightly less. Others might have unusual shine, sharpness, or misaligned features. To the average person, they look like just another coin. But to the trained eye, or the lucky finder, they can be worth serious money. Imagine holding a penny in your hand that came off the press in a way it wasn't supposed to. Maybe it was struck twice. Maybe the metal was wrong. Maybe the machines weren't aligned just right. Whatever the case, a handful of these 1976 Lincoln cents escaped into circulation, and over time, they've become legendary among collectors. And then there's condition. A 1976 penny in circulated, beat-up shape is usually worth its face value. But one that's been preserved perfectly? Uncirculated? Certified by grading services like PCGS or NGC? That's a different story. The difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth thousands often comes down to one thing: condition. These top-grade coins, especially those with rare mint errors or unique characteristics, have shocked the numismatic world with their sale prices. Collectors pay high premiums for coins that are clean, sharp, and mistake-free, or even better, beautifully flawed in ways the mint never intended. Now here's where things get really interesting. Among the known examples of valuable 1976 Lincoln cents, one particular coin stands out. A penny, struck with unusual precision, preserved in exceptional condition, and authenticated as a rare variety, was put up for sale. The bidding was fierce. Collectors from around the world jumped in, each one hoping to claim this seemingly ordinary piece of copper. When the final bid was placed, and the gavel fell, the coin sold for an eye-widening, heart-pounding total of $135,000. That's right. A 1-cent coin. Worth $135,000. So now ask yourself, how many pennies have passed through your hands? How many did you ignore? How many are sitting in your change bowl right now? The truth is, treasures like this are still out there. They haven't all been found. And the best part? You don't need to dig through ancient ruins or buy gold bars to start treasure hunting. All you need is a sharp eye, a little curiosity, and a handful of change. Look at your pennies. Check the dates. Study the mint marks. Notice the condition. Examine the details. You might be surprised at what you find, because that little copper coin sitting in your palm could be worth more than a new car. More than a college tuition. More than most people would ever imagine. So the next time you find a 1976 Lincoln penny in your pocket, don't just toss it aside. That tiny coin could hold a story. A mistake. A mystery. Or a miracle, and if it's the right one, it might just be worth $135,000. Top 3. It's small, it's copper-colored, and it often goes unnoticed. The Lincoln penny, just 1 cent tossed in a drawer, dropped on the sidewalk, left behind on a cafe counter. But what if that tiny coin sitting quietly in your pocket could secretly be worth more than a luxury car, a dream vacation, or even your yearly salary? This isn't a fairy tale. It's not a myth or a collector's legend. It's real. Because some of these pennies, especially one from a very specific year, have been found, studied, and sold for jaw-dropping amounts. Today, we're talking about the 1977 Lincoln 1-cent penny. A coin that, to most people, looks completely ordinary. But for a select few lucky enough to spot the signs, it has become a symbol of hidden treasure. Let's rewind to the year 1977. America was adjusting to the aftermath of the Vietnam War. Jimmy Carter had just taken office. Elvis Presley played his final concert. Star Wars hit theaters and changed pop culture forever. And amid all that, the U.S. Mint was doing what it always did, striking billions of coins for everyday use. Among them, the Lincoln cent. Now, here's what's interesting. The design hadn't changed much since 1959. You had the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the front, and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. It was a coin nearly every American touched at some point. But among the many millions of pennies struck in 1977, a few were not like the rest. Some had subtle errors. Some had unusual finishes. Some were struck with such sharpness and clarity, they stood out even to the untrained eye. Others were stamped on planchets that were never meant for a penny at all, foreign metals, wrong sizes, or transitional blanks that found their way onto the press. These weren't obvious mistakes. In fact, most people who held these pennies never noticed a thing. They spent them, saved them, or lost them. But a sharp-eyed collector, they see the difference. The tiniest variation in lettering, an extra outline around the date, a weight that doesn't quite match. That's where the story changes. Even the mint marks tell part of the tale. A 1977 penny could bear no mint mark at all, meaning it came from Philadelphia. A small D means it was minted in Denver. And a rare proof version with an S would have come from San Francisco. But the real magic comes when an ordinary penny has something extraordinary, something the mint never intended. Double die errors, off-center strikes, weak strikes, and misplaced mint marks are just a few of the known variations. Even more rare are coins struck on dime planchets, creating thinner, smaller pennies that look like they don't quite belong. And when these are authenticated by professional graders and preserved in pristine condition, their value skyrockets. Condition matters more than most people realize. A coin that's been dropped, scratched, or circulated for years might only be worth a few cents. But one that's been kept in perfect condition, never touched by human hands, stored safely in a protective case since the day it was minted, that coin becomes something else entirely. It becomes a collector's dream. In the world of numismatics, rarity plus condition equals serious value. And when you throw in a one-of-a-kind error, that's when prices start reaching the stratosphere. So here's where things get exciting. A specific 1977 Lincoln 1-cent penny, struck with a rare combination of mint error and preserved in exceptional, almost flawless condition, surfaced in the collecting world. It was graded, verified, and sent to auction. Bidders from around the world showed up. Some were collectors, others investors. All knew what they were looking at. When the bidding finally stopped, the hammer fell on a number so large, it left the coin world stunned. That single, tiny, copper coin, just 1 cent, sold for an unbelievable total of $130,000. Yes, you heard that right. 1 cent. $130,000, and here's the kicker. Coins like this are still out there. Hidden in old jars. Sitting in boxes of forgotten change. Passed down through families, tucked away in drawers, or maybe, just maybe, resting in your pocket right now. So, take a closer look at your change. Don't ignore the pennies. Especially those from 1977. Look for mint marks. Examine the condition. Feel the weight. Notice the shine. What seems worthless could actually be a hidden gem, because sometimes, the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprise, and sometimes, that 1 cent can be worth $130,000. Top 4. It's one of the most common coins in America. You've probably had dozens of them pass through your hands in just the past week. It's not shiny or flashy. It's not gold or silver. In fact, it's worth just 1 cent. But what if I told you that one of these tiny coins, struck in the year 1980, could be worth more than a brand new luxury car? More than most people make in a year. The truth is, something that small, might just hold something that big. Let's take a closer look at the 1980 Lincoln 1-cent penny. Now, at first glance, it seems like just another copper coin with the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, America's 16th president, staring quietly to the right. It's the same design we've seen since 1959, when the Lincoln Memorial was added to the reverse of the coin. A classic look. A simple piece of metal. But the story behind the 1980 version? That's where things start to get interesting. To understand why this coin matters, we need to understand what was happening at the time. The year was 1980. America was in the middle of change. Inflation was rising. Gas prices were up. Technology was moving fast. And the cost of raw materials, especially copper, was going through the roof. That presented a problem for the U.S. Mint. The Lincoln cent, which had been made mostly of copper for decades, was suddenly getting too expensive to produce. So, in the background, the mint began preparing for a shift. It wouldn't happen until 1982, when the penny would be changed from mostly copper to a cheaper zinc core with only a thin layer of copper on the outside. But 2 years earlier, in 1980, all the coins were still being made the old-fashioned way, 95% copper, 5% zinc. That alone already makes the 1980 Lincoln cent the last of a dying breed, part of the final chapter in America's full copper pennies. But there's more. The 1980 Lincoln pennies were struck at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. You can tell by checking the small letter below the date. If there's no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. A D means Denver. An S means San Francisco. Now, most of these coins are still worth just 1 cent. Maybe a few cents more in really nice condition. But what most people don't know is that certain versions of this penny, just a tiny fraction of them, were made with minting mistakes. And those mistakes? That's where the money is. There are several types of errors and anomalies that can turn a simple coin into a rare collector's item. One of the most famous is the double die error. That's when the coin is struck more than once, and the result is a blurry or doubled image, especially around the letters and numbers. It's a small detail, but collectors love it, and they're willing to pay top dollar for a clean example. Then there are off-center strikes. Imagine the design of the coin shifted slightly to one side, leaving part of the surface blank. It may look like a flaw, but to collectors, it's a perfect mistake. Other errors include die cracks, clipped planchets, and coins struck on the wrong metal planchets, such as foreign blanks or transitional materials. These are incredibly rare, but they do exist, and that brings us back to the 1980 penny. Among the millions produced that year, a small number have surfaced over the decades that were unlike the rest. Whether it was an error during production, a change in metal composition that slipped through unnoticed, or a rare proof coin that somehow made it into circulation, these unusual coins have become targets for serious collectors. But the real secret? It's not just about errors. Condition plays a massive role. A flawless 1980 penny, one that has never been touched, scratched, or circulated, can fetch serious money even without any minting mistake. Coins like these, preserved in what collectors call mint state or proof condition, are graded by professionals and sealed in protective cases to lock in their quality. The difference between a worn-out penny and a perfect one can be the difference between pocket change and a small fortune. So, how do you know if your 1980 penny is special? Start by examining the coin under bright light. Look closely at the lettering and the date. Check for doubling, missing details, or oddly placed designs. Flip it over and inspect the Lincoln Memorial. Is it clear? Off-center? Cracked? Then, check the weight. A genuine 1980 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's much lighter, you may have something unusual. And finally, look at the condition. If it looks untouched, has that rich copper shine, and no wear on the high points, get it graded, because while most 1980 pennies are worth next to nothing, the rarest ones, the mistakes, the proofs, the hidden treasures in perfect condition, can command unbelievable prices. And in one stunning case, a 1980 Lincoln penny, preserved in exceptional condition with a rare error, found its way into the hands of a dedicated collector. It was examined, certified, and eventually sold at a major coin auction. When the final bid was accepted and the gavel dropped, the value of that single penny shocked even the most experienced dealers. That 1-cent coin, just a tiny circle of copper, was sold for $100,000. Yes, $100,000. So the next time you find a penny on the ground or dig one out of your change jar, don't pass it by. That coin might look ordinary. It might seem like it's worth nothing. But if it's from 1980, take a second look. Because it could be one of the rarest pieces of pocket change in American history, and it might just be worth $100,000. Top 5. Every day, we walk past them, spend them without a second thought, or let them pile up in jars and drawers. They're small, brown, and seemingly worthless. Pennies. Just 1 cent. But what if I told you that one particular penny, one struck in the year 1981, could be worth more than your car, more than your yearly salary, and in some cases, more than what most people save in a lifetime? It may sound impossible, but it's true. Some of the most ordinary-looking coins turn out to be worth a fortune. And today, we're going to uncover the incredible story behind the 1981 Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin that might be sitting unnoticed in your pocket right now. Let's step back to 1981. Ronald Reagan had just become president. MTV was preparing to launch. IBM introduced its first personal computer. And in the background, the U.S. Mint was striking millions of coins as it always had, including the familiar Lincoln penny. The design had been the same for decades. On the front, the profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor D. Brenner. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial, proudly centered with tiny details so fine, you could almost see the statue inside. But while the design remained unchanged, something was brewing beneath the surface. The cost of copper was rising. The economic pressure was building. The U.S. Mint had already begun testing alternatives for the 1-cent coin, planning to transition to a cheaper, zinc-based planchet with a copper coating. That change would officially take place the following year, in 1982. But 1981 would mark one of the final full years when the Lincoln penny was made with solid copper. That detail alone makes it a turning point in U.S. coinage. But what makes the 1981 penny truly fascinating, truly valuable, isn't just its material. It's what collectors discovered years later: hidden errors, rare variants, and flawless examples of the coin that somehow escaped the everyday wear and tear of circulation. Let's talk about how a 1981 penny, something millions of people spent every day, could become a collector's dream. The answer lies in 3 things: errors, condition, and rarity. First, errors. The U.S. Mint, despite its precision, is not immune to mistakes. Double die errors, where the coin is struck more than once in slightly different positions, can cause the letters or numbers to appear doubled or distorted. Off-center strikes create unusual shapes that catch the eye of collectors. There are even cases where coins are struck on the wrong metal planchets, blanks intended for foreign coins or other denominations, resulting in odd weights, colors, and surfaces. Next, we have condition. A penny that's been in circulation, scraped by vending machines, dropped in parking lots, or tumbled through cash registers is often worth just a cent. But a penny that was never spent, never touched, and perfectly preserved? That's a different story. These are known as mint state coins, and when graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC, they can earn labels like MS65 or MS67, indicating superior condition and sharpness. Finally, rarity. A coin's value increases dramatically if it has a rare error or if only a few high-grade examples exist today. For the 1981 penny, all of these factors come together. And because it was struck right before a major change in coin composition, some transitional blanks may have been used accidentally. These rare variations often slip through unnoticed, until a keen-eyed collector or expert finds them. And here's another twist: the 1981 penny came in two varieties. There's the Type 1, with a more rounded, blurry appearance to the mint mark, and the Type 2, where the mint mark is sharply defined. Type 2 is generally considered more desirable for proofs, and those struck in San Francisco with the S mint mark carry extra collector interest, especially in high grades. So how do you know if your 1981 penny is worth something? Start by looking under good lighting. Examine the date and mint mark. Look for any unusual doubling in the letters or numbers. Does the penny appear off-center? Are the edges clean and smooth, or oddly clipped? Feel the weight. If it's significantly different, it might not be struck on the standard copper planchet. Next, inspect the condition. A coin that looks brand new, with no signs of wear and a strong, rich copper luster, could be a mint state coin. That's when you should consider getting it graded by a professional coin certification service, because here's the truth: most 1981 Lincoln pennies are worth only a cent. Maybe a few more if they're clean. But a few, a rare and special few, have sold for astonishing amounts. One of the most remarkable cases involved a 1981 Lincoln penny with a combination of near-perfect condition and a rare error that made it one of a kind. It was sent to auction, listed among far more expensive gold and silver coins, and yet it stood out for its uniqueness. Collectors saw it. They recognized it. And they knew this was no ordinary coin. The bidding started. The tension rose. And when the final bid was placed, the price stunned even seasoned coin experts. That single 1-cent coin sold for an unbelievable total of $90,000, yes. 1 penny. $90,000. So before you dismiss the next penny you come across, before you toss it in a jar or let it slip away unnoticed, take a closer look. Check the year. Check the details. Because that small, quiet coin might be more than a forgotten piece of change. It might be the next hidden treasure. The one you never knew you had. And maybe, just maybe, it could be worth $90,000.